All right, I think, are we live now?
Are we ready to begin? All right. I would like to call the board meeting to order at 3:43 p.m. and I'd start with roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Jantz?
Here.
Commissioner O'Rourke?
Here.
Commissioner Venkatesh?
Here.
Commissioner Cinco?
Here.
Commissioner Williams?
Here.
Commissioner Webster?
Here.
Commissioner Cohen?
Here.
Commissioner Scarborough? Commissioner Benton?
Here.
Great, and staff present. Sorry, Commissioner Bremel.
Here.
Got her, perfect, okay. And then staff present, Carmen Greensmith?
Here.
Sherry Collins?
Here.
Victoria Vaughn?
Here.
Sue K. Kneipel?
Here.
Nikki Suka?
Hi, I'm
Hello,
here.
I'm here.
Ricky Gonsalski? Is here, he's working.
He's busy
And,
working.
Myself, Kyla Dalton-Nuffa. I'm sorry, I forgot one person, Assistant Attorney General Nick Bacon.
Who have we missed? PV says, well, that was my next comment. Thank you, everyone. Just so everyone is aware, we have the Attorney General here, whose name is Nick Bacon, not Kevin Bacon, just for the clarification. And thank you very much, Nick Bacon, for joining us. We appreciate having you here. All right, we do have a quorum. Everyone is here, and I'd like to thank everyone for having your cameras on during roll call. Now I would like to ask you, for communication access purposes, if you wouldn't mind turning off your cameras unless you have a comment. We will then call on you, recognize you, and then you can turn your camera on at that time. Okay, we can start with the second item, approval of the meeting minutes. Are there any motions for approval of the meeting minutes from last board meeting that occurred on August 18th?
This is Commissioner
Sanko?
Senko. I recommend that we approve the board meeting, motion that we approve the board meeting from our minutes from our last board meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanko. I would like to second that. Do I have any seconds? All in favor, please raise your hand if you are in favor. Or say aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. I have a brief chair report as agenda item 3, and the chair's report will be brief. However, I would like to mention 2 things that are important. First of all, I was told there are some public concerns about the chair's involvement with the public interaction. So I'd like to announce some things first, that everything is confidential. My wife is going through cancer for a second time. So we have been dealing with that, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and such, the entire treatment plan. And I'm happy now to mention today, formally, my wife is cancer-free. So that means we now have family that we can focus on now. And now I can focus on board activities and public participation and so forth. So I just appreciate everyone's patience and understanding with me while I dealt with some very important family issues. And now I'm happy to report that my wife is okay and on the road to recovery. The second item I would like to share is that we do have someone rather famous with us on the board. Commissioner Cienko has recently been named the Bell. She has been belled for Ben's Bells. I'd like to she's been recognized by the community for her work in the disability community and the deaf community. And we wanted to make sure that we give her a warm applause for being belled by Ben's Bells. So Commissioner Cienko.
Thank you. Isn't this great?
That Beld Award is, if you're not familiar, it is a high honor. If you do any research to see that this is a nonprofit organization that reached out to Commissioner Cienko for her work. And
it's a fantastic organization.
Yeah, they sent this information to Sherry Collins as well as the media, and the event was televised and also printed in the newspaper and on radio. And the point was that she has been recognized, and we wanted to know if she has any comments in regards to that.
I just want to say it was a surprise. And it also happened on my birthday, which was a really nice surprise. It was a great birthday gift, and it's the best birthday gift I could have asked for. I encourage everyone to look into Ben's Bells. It's a fantastic organization, and they spread messages about kindness and helping individuals in the community.
Thank you, and congratulations again, Commissioner Cienko. It's wonderful to see someone from the deaf community receive that type of an award. So I wanted to make sure that you were recognized here and are seen as a celebrity.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Another thing that is not really about myself, but it is the third item. I'd like to remind everyone about the holidays approaching, and I wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that we do have some things on the agenda that we wanted to make sure that we do touch on and cover before we all leave for the holidays and before we start the new year. So I'd like to start. We do have a number of interpreter complaints plus some public comments. So what we'd like to do is for each interpreter complaint, we'd like to hear from the comments from the public regarding that, regarding each specific interpreter. And we'd like to keep them separate so we know which item we're focused on and which complaint. All right, that's all I have to say regarding that issue. So now I would like to invite our Executive Director, Sherry Collins, for her report.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's great to see all of you here at the meeting tonight, where we don't have to worry about quorum, so thank you so much for being here. I would like to say congratulations to Commissioner Cienko for being recognized for her performance and her work in the community. It's great to see her get belled, and I look forward to seeing the interview. My report is not as long as the actual report that you received, but I do want to go over some highlights this evening. There are two new positions that we got in the last legislative session. It's the Parent and Youth Specialist position and the communication media specialist position. We received applicants for those two positions. And the supervisory team, Carmen and Nikki, will begin interviews for those positions at the end of this month. We're really excited to be filling those two new positions at the agency, and that's where we are in the process currently. I also wanted to provide an update on the aging project that I mentioned at the last meeting. Things are in the works. As of this morning, we got confirmation to work with Gallaudet University to assist us in doing a research study on aging issues that affect our communities we serve. We will be doing an online survey. One of those surveys will be focusing on ASL only, and that will be for the deaf community to fill out. The second survey will be an English only survey. We want to make sure that you see that survey when it comes out. We're expecting it to come out at the beginning of the year in January, if not sooner. Secondly, we have the Aging of Access, which is our new website that we have developed for our senior community. We had the opportunity to see the first phase of the design. And now staff internally is providing feedback. We're hoping that the new website will be launched by March before our senior expo that we will be hosting on March 25th. I wasn't able to read my own handwriting. It's also been an interesting time with the changes that have happened with COVID, with everything being virtual. We continue to receive more and more requests for virtual training. Technology has really helped us reach more people. Who would have thought that this would have happened? But I'm proud of our staff as they've worked with the community in different areas of training. You can see more information in the report, but we are developing more and more partnerships. And I'm really excited about some of the changes in leadership with the Department of Health here in Arizona, the Department of Health Services. We will be talking more about that when we're talking about the senior accessibility facility or senior accessible facilities. But Carmen, Nikki, and I, mainly Carmen, she is the lead on this project. She's the lead contact, but we have a standing monthly meeting with some essential leadership in the state of Arizona at the Department of Health. And this entity focuses on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really looks at programs and services as a whole that are provided by the Department of Health. It's exciting to see some improvements and some conversations that we're having now on policy issues to improve those services. And of course, that goes back to training with hospitals, and we've also been converting materials into an accessible manner for the community. Another hot issue that we've seen over the past couple of months is with over-the-counter hearing aids. There's been a lot of action and confusion amongst the community as to what that means. We've been contacted by media to do interview, and Michelle Michaels actually did a couple of those interviews. And we also had several articles that were published about deaf inmates. And you can see that report. You can see more information about that in my report for tonight. Our staff are also slowly returning to community events in person. When community events are hosted, we have attended or hosted a booth. We are slowly returning to some of those public events. That is a summary of my report. And the financial report that you have, there haven't been many changes. We've been monitoring our budget, but there's really nothing new to report. I'm trying to remember everything, but I believe that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Sherry. We really appreciate the summary you have of your reports. It's wonderful information that's contained in there. I'm very excited with the holidays coming up. I've noticed that we have Commissioner Brimhall with her hand up. Commissioner Brimhall, would you like to make a comment or ask a question?
No, I'll just take my hand down. So sorry.
Oh, quite all right. Thank you, Commissioner Brimhall. I'm glad we wanted to make sure. Well, I'm glad we got that recognized. So if there is a question or a comment we have for the Executive Director, Sherry Collins, please make that now. Seeing and hearing none, let's move on with the annual report, if you would.
With the annual report, I'm not sure if some of the newer board members know this, but we are required by legislation to submit an annual report to the governor's office. And this does require board action. After this has been reviewed by the board members, we will submit this report. You can see that the letter comes from the board chair, and it's a formality that is required by the board.
All right. Any questions regarding the annual report? Seeing none and hearing none. I'd like to go ahead now and move on. I've already mentioned the public comments. That we have none, but we do have interpreter complaint comments that we would like to save till the end, if we could. Sherry?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, this does require board action. This does require a vote to approve the annual report.
All right. Thank you for that reminder. I completely overlooked that. If there are no questions or comments, and I'm sorry, I see Commissioner Cohen.
Commissioner Cohen, I move that we approve the annual report.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. Any second?
Commissioner
Commissioner Brimhall.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Seeing and hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you so much.
No.
Now we have the policy and legislative update.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everyone. Good evening, board members. I'm excited to announce that the Language Acquisition Task Force report has been completed. It is fully available in English, American Sign Language, and Spanish. It's been uploaded to the ACDHH website. Just today, it was uploaded. It is there and available for you to read and to share with the community in order to begin conversations. The ASL draft is a summary of the report. It is not a full translation of the report. It is a summary. It's about 13 minutes in length. I look forward to your thoughts as well. Just a couple of things that I wanted to mention, some key things from that report. When it comes to data and recommendations, it was recommended that there be some best practices in data collection and data sharing between agencies. That way, data can actually be analyzed and used to make data-driven decisions on language acquisition needs for deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind children in Arizona. And also for families to receive timely information and resources at the 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month protocol. And also to have professionals who are working with the families to be properly trained to provide families with a whole range of communication resources. It's also recommended that the statewide assessment team be reinitiated and led by ASDB. That team will travel around the state to provide the proper assessments for language. I encourage you to watch the video or read the report, and if you have any further questions, I'm happy to answer those. We also have the deaf-blind resolution, which is very exciting. There's a document for your review. In that document, it mentions that the board will give authority for a deaf-blind individual to serve in the role of a deaf commissioner. And that is one of the required positions on the board. Also, a person who has a combined vision and hearing loss will also be able to serve on the board in the role of a hard of hearing representative. We look forward to your decision that you make after you've reviewed that document. And last, I wanted to mention another exciting thing that happened in the policy arena. We've been providing support, or we did provide support to the US Senate debates using certified deaf interpreters on the main screen, and it was done live during the broadcast. It was a fantastic effort by everyone who was involved, and I look forward to that we see more of that down the road. And we also provided similar services for the gubernatorial interviews. And we've continued to also partner with the Citizens Clean Elections Commission in translating the Voters Education Guide into American Sign Language. It's great to see more of that communication access out there. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What a wonderful report that involves so many things. The report was very detailed. Do anyone have any questions or comments for Nikki Sue? Hearing none and seeing none, I like to move on with the interpreter's licensure committee, please. The updates.
Thank you. The Interpreter Licensure Committee met last on the 16th, just yesterday, and we reviewed 26 applications. One of them was a in-state provisional. I always like to point out when we have new folks coming in, 4 were in-state and 22 were out of state. So again, predominantly out of state, but thank you to the work of the office staff for getting all the materials ready and having it so easy for us to work through that process.
Thank you as well, Commissioner Benton. We always appreciate your hard work and having our new provisional licensees join the team as well. What a way to celebrate. We look forward to seeing more, more of our people get their provisional licenses and therefore increase our numbers for people servicing our community going forward next year. Any questions or comments related to the Interpreter Licenses Committee update? Hearing and seeing none, let's continue on with our agenda, and we'll start with agenda item number 9, the interpreter complaints and inquiries. We'll be reviewing the first one on the list is Jennifer Morris. We'd like Commissioner Benton to make our statement prior to hearing the public comments. Commissioner Benton, please.
Thank you. The board is responsible for establishing time limits for public participation. Unless modified by the board at a particular meeting, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes on all topics. Personal attacks on board members, staff, or other persons in attendance or absent are discouraged. Individuals are cautioned that statements concerning others that could be considered slanderous may subject the speaker to civil action. Those who violate this rule can be barred from future appearances before the board. This applies to both public hearings and board meetings. Your cooperation is appreciated.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Benton, for that public announcement. We'd like to invite Jennifer Morrison to turn on her screen, please. Kyla, will you please allow her access to her video camera, please?
PD, this is Kyla. Just to let you know, the comment that's connected to this is actually by video. Jennifer Morse is not here in the meeting, so I will play that video here shortly.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessica Jones, and the reason that I am leaving this message, first I want to say thank you for accepting the complaint that I filed. I had a bad experience with an interpreter. It happened at the courthouse. Well, there was a court hearing happening. I'm in a different state. I'm in Ohio. The hearing was happening in Arizona. And I was joining virtually. The interpreter didn't introduce themselves. They didn't say anything. I didn't know their name. I didn't get any introductions from the attorneys or anything. When the hearing was almost over, the judge asked any questions, and I said, I would like to have a CLD or a CDI. And the judge asked what it meant. And the interpreter began explaining and saying that it was for people who had mental illness. And I immediately said, no, 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 I object. I started to get really upset. You could tell based on my facial expression. And what they were saying was wrong. The explanation that they were giving was wrong. And the examples that they gave on what a CDI does was wrong. A CDI is there to make the information more accessible and clearer for me when I'm in a court hearing so I can understand. But I didn't want the judge to think that I wasn't able to handle myself in a hearing or follow along. I didn't want to lose my child. And I really didn't understand what the interpreter was saying. And for you board members, I want you to take this very seriously. I don't want you to really take the side of the interpreter. I've been through this so many times.
Thank you, Kyla. I'm sure we will have an opportunity to discuss and review the interpreter complaint. So now I would like ACDHH staff to give us a summary of that report, please.
Can you hear me? I'm having some trouble with my camera. Okay. We're gonna move forward and fix that later. So the summary of this complaint is in regards to interpreter Jennifer Morse. The complaint came to us via the Superior Court of Arizona through their Court Interpretation and Translation Services Department. So Jessica Jones made the complaint within the court interpreter's office, and then that complaint was then forwarded to us by the interpreter court office. In her complaint, Ms. Jones states that I was talking, but the judge did not know that I was talking, and then he got angry. The interpreter should have explained to the judge that I was talking, but did not. Also, I was trying to ask if the interpreter was certified, and I did not realize that the judge was also talking at the same time, and the interpreter did not tell me that the judge was speaking because it was on video. I didn't know he was speaking. Also, the interpreter did not introduce herself, and the interpreter never indicated who was speaking to me. The interpreter was really rude, and when I asked if I could have a certified deaf interpreter, the interpreter said to me and to the entire courtroom that CDIs are for people who have low functioning or mental issues. That was very inappropriate, and it's not true. So that is the English version of the original complaint that Jessica Jones submitted to a superior court. The investigator, myself, was able to obtain the actual court hearing as well as a transcript of the court hearing. And you'll find those materials on the website under the commissioner login. And the conclusion I came to is the setting of this meeting was high stakes. Because of this, being a high stakes meeting and having to do with a family court case dealing with custody between parents, the explanation of the role of a certified deaf interpreter could have been more technical. According to the deaf consumer, clarification was requested because the interpretation was unclear to her, and a certified deaf interpreter would have helped with clarification. The deaf consumer knew her rights and felt she needed a language specialist or a certified deaf interpreter in order to fully understand the language used in this high stakes setting. The interpreter's explanation seemingly minimized the deaf client's request. The interpreter should have remained neutral, not inserting her opinion of the need of a certified deaf interpreter or not in that particular setting. And then the investigator's recommendation is to require the interpreter, Jennifer Morse, to take 10 continuing education hours related to ethics within the next 90 days. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your summary and explanation of the complaint. Now I'd like to open it up to the board and the commission as well. Do you have any questions or comments that we'd like to discuss about this specific complaint? Keep in mind, if you feel a need for legal counsel, it will require us to make a motion that the board would approve and would go into executive session at that point with our attorney general, with the AG that's present. Open comments, please. I'd like to recognize Commissioner Scarborough. I would just like to add a point with the ethical training. I agree with that. That's a good suggestion. And I also think that it's pertinent that the interpreter receives training related to working with the CDI. It seems that the interpreter really didn't understand the function of a CDI in that setting. So I think with that, the interpreter needs to get further training with relations to working with certified deaf interpreters and how to work with the CDI in those settings and what a certified deaf interpreter is utilized for in those settings as well. Thank you, Commissioner Scarborough. Oh, we have, you want to respond to that, Victoria?
I just want to clarify that I meant to say the recommendation is for ethics training within a legal setting, because that's where the problem occurred. So I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that that was there while you're discussing.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner O'Rourke.
I just have a question, being a new member and not being that familiar with certified deaf interpreters. I was surprised, and I guess I wondered why the interpreter was not a certified deaf interpreter for a case like this that was a legal case.
That's a wonderful question. And I absolutely agree with the board's recommendations. And Victoria, if you would like to respond and give an explanation for that about getting a.
Sure. So the interpreter that was at that hearing, Ms. Morris, is what we call a hearing interpreter. So, and she is certified. She is certified and licensed in Arizona. What the deaf consumer was asking for was an additional interpreter who is deaf themselves and certified as an interpreter. And that certified deaf interpreter would act as a language specialist or help with the communication being facilitated between the deaf consumer and the hearing parties.
So then I'm, again, going forward, there would be two interpreters at that next meeting, or?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, we'll continue. I'm sorry.
I was just wondering, there would be two interpreters. Okay, I'm just not familiar with those needs.
Yes. The certified deaf interpreter allows for language equivalency. They take a lot of the terms that are then given to the hearing interpreter and they're able to put it into ASL so that it's clear, the native language, the first language of the deaf consumer. A certified deaf interpreter, therefore, can look at the ASL interpretation and then render a second layer of being a native signer fluent in American Sign Language, therefore giving a clear understanding, omitting as much of the English translation that could come across in the signing from the hearing interpreter. And it's a huge benefit to our deaf consumer and very much needed. Unfortunately, the public isn't aware of the accessibility of having a certified deaf interpreter and for those appropriate situations utilizing interpreters. And it puts a lot on the hearing interpreter when they request a certified deaf interpreter. The hearing interpreter needs to then understand and just verbalize that request and also providing an appropriate explanation of what a certified deaf interpreter would be used for. In this original complaint, I think it's very valid because the interpreter did not offer that explanation of what a CDI would be used for, as well as given a clear explanation of what they did was they made the decision to say that what the interpreter was used for instead of voicing it and allowing the client's explanation or request. They stepped out of their role and they did not interpret the communication. They did not facilitate the communication as expected, the cultural expectation of it. And bringing in a CDI would afford that opportunity to be added there in interpreting for the deaf consumer per their request. I see Commissioner Cohen turned on his camera. Right. Go ahead, Sandra.
That's right. That's a great explanation of a CDI and their role to interpret. So I think this complaint is about the interpreter jumping out of role and making an explanation regarding a CDI for the person while also working, but stepping out of role for that. So to me, it just seems that was a conflict within their job right there, and that was a violation. You just imagine how the deaf consumer felt at that time, the interpreter there, and then taking over a decision to need a certified deaf interpreter or not based on what they saw. So the question of how many hours of training that this interpreter needs, I think this is a rather serious offense and we should increase the number of hours so that this interpreter would then have training to know how to do and realize how serious their offense is. I think there should be tiers of punishment for types of violations, and this is a more serious offense. That's my opinion. Victoria, do you have a response to what Commissioner Cohen has said?
I totally agree with everything that's been said so far. I'll follow whatever the board decides on how many hours. We'll follow with what you guys decide.
Commissioner Cienko? I agree, Commissioner Jantz or Chair Jantz. What really bothers me, why did the interpreter speak for the client in that situation instead of asking the client to clarify about the CDL comment they made, because that was rather confusing. The interpreter did not ask for clarification, but just went and spoke for the client, took over the conversation between the client and the court system. That really bothers me. So I agree with Victoria and her recommendation. And I think to receive more training in a legal setting to also require more training to learn how to work with a certified deaf interpreter to understand their role and function better. Also, I agree that the interpreter should be aware of their role. So I felt that that just was not professional and inappropriate behavior and not expected from a legal interpreter. Thank you, Commissioner Jantz, if you don't mind. Commissioner Scarborough, do you have a related comment to Commissioner Stanko? If you don't mind, I respond to Commissioner Stanko. I am very upset about this type of situation, especially in a legal situation with a legally licensed interpreter. I might expect something from a generally licensed interpreter, but this is a heavy responsibility for certain. And it's important to have an appropriate interpreter there in the appropriate setting to provide the access, especially in the legal situation, because this could impact a person's life in a very positive or in a detrimental way. It is a serious offense and a serious responsibility. And seeing this situation that happens in court, it's rather demeaning to a deaf person who is already struggling to be within a legal system and needing access. That creates even more of a problem, trying to go through a legal process and then trying to access it in a language that is not theirs. It's a heavy responsibility for certain. It bothers me a lot. So my concern is, yes, obviously I agree, ethics is necessary. I agree with Commissioner Scarborough that specific training is about what a CDI is and how to work with the CDI is needed. And is that sufficient for a legally licensed interpreter? My response is no, that's not. So reading the fee schedule, it does say that we can charge a fine for a violation of professional conduct from the CPC, that it is an egregious offense. It is a very serious offense. And if the commission is not aware or did not know how to, or if that person did not know how to advocate for themselves, what would happen to the interpreter? What would happen to the deaf consumer going through the legal system? It's terrifying. It's terrifying to think how many clients are out there who do not advocate for themselves and are not aware of their own rights and do not know that they can request a CDI. But there's a legal interpreter there, a legally licensed interpreter who is supposed to be in that type of situation. And that type of conduct for a legal interpreter, that's terrifying to me as well. So my question for you is, does the interpreter have a licensure complaint before this? Have they had any?
Yes, they've had, yeah, I'm gonna answer it that way, yes.
Can you tell us how many complaints and did they result in punishment for their action?
I can tell you a guesstimate of how many as far as the results of each of those. It'll take me a little more time to research that. I don't have that at my fingertips, but let's get you how many. So in my records here, I can give you a rough estimate of 4 complaints that I can see right now that are on my electronic files. We have hard copy files that aren't here yet, but right now I can see 4 complaints for this particular interpreter.
All right. For Magic, what you can see is, can you tell how many From all those offenses, can you tell if any of them had concluded with the board? Are there any consequences from the board?
What I can see here is one from 2015 that did go before the board. And the penalty was continuing education hours, and that was satisfied. I don't see any that have a monetary civil money penalty. But again, this is just my electronic records. I need the paper to go back to the full history and extent of what happened and why and what the result was. But that's the most recent one I have.
Thank you, Victoria. I think I've seen enough. I feel pretty confident that I would like to suggest this for discussion and consideration, that we perhaps add a monetary fine for the consumer violations, and with the fee schedule saying $100 to $300 range for each professional conduct violation. See, on the complaint, I can see that there are two specific conduct violations. One is unprofessional conduct relating to respect for consumer, and the other is professionalism from the report. Obviously, the interpreter has violated both tenets. So perhaps seeing what you all think, maybe a $300 fine for each of the conduct violations, which would be a total of $600 plus continuing education hours. Any thoughts? Anyone else like to comment? Commissioner Scarborough, and then Commissioner Cohen, and then Commissioner Shienko. The biggest concern for me, Commissioner Scarborough says, that the interpreter has violated ethics in this current situation that we were talking about, as well as consequences from the judge and the attorney. Their perspectives at the end of this setting felt that the interpreter did a great job. That now we are obligated to fix that, don't you believe? I would agree. Chairman Jantz says I would agree with that, and that's why I'm thinking that this is not just educational units that would help, but I think that a fine would show that these are involved, and the interpreter did not do good in this situation. And the result of that interpreting situation was not good, but should be penalized by the board oversight and seeing their license is the only way that I think that we can address this, just to let them know that we cannot control or approach the judge with this situation. And we can only address it with the person who made the complaint and the person who received information regarding the complaint.
This is Commissioner Scarborough. Just as a follow-up, can we provide education to the court?
That is a good question, Commissioner Jantz.
To make it known to them that that type of behavior is unacceptable?
Victoria?
That's a good question. I am not sure the reach that we have as far as educating the judge and the lawyers involved. I don't know.
I see the executive director, Sherry Collins, on screen.
Yes, and because of that question, I would recommend that you seek legal advice.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Sherry Collins. I see Commissioner Cohen and Commissioner Shanko, and then I did see Commissioner Benton come up as well.
I have a question for the commissioners and for ACDHH. My question for ACDHH is, do they have the authority to tell RID what happened, to file a complaint there? That's my first question for the commission. Do we think that we should elevate this concern and, you know, taking her license and putting her license on hold for a period of time, perhaps a week? This is Chair Jantz. Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. I'll answer that question and then I will turn it over to Victoria. Typically, for suspensions, we do follow a certain process. To get to the level of a suspension generally requires a person to not follow through with previous consequences that have been given to them, such as continuing education. If we want to recommend a suspension, we would have to perhaps see what we hear from the Assistant Attorney General, and we may need additional information in order to accept the consequences or the decision made by the board. It might be a good idea to have an educational discussion, a discussion about a civil monetary fine, and if she then refuses to cooperate, eventually we could consider a license suspension. This is Commissioner Cohen. I thought it was mentioned that the interpreter had complaints filed against them 4 times, meaning this would be the 5th complaint. It seems to be a recurring theme, and they're required to take continuing education and they complete that. Is that enough? And does that justify advancing this to the next level and considering a suspension? This is Chair Jantz. You're absolutely right. The one thing that I think, in my opinion, where we're kind of in a sticky situation is that there was a monetary fine with that first complaint, but with the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, there was nothing. So historically, she has cooperated. She's been involved in the process. She's followed through with all board reprimands. And now we have a new complaint before us. And I don't know if going to a suspension would be the correct route without having the history to show that it's escalated to that level. I don't think that we would have the justification to do that. If we do consider having a monetary fine and continuing education, if now that we have history, if the board gets another complaint from this interpreter, then we could consider a suspension if it gets to that point and it's showing that the monetary fine that was imposed was not enough and a more serious type of thing be put in place.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Cohen. I'll put my second question on hold then.
Okay, thank you. Victoria?
So I agree with Commissioner Jantz, because I don't have the history, the concrete history of the past offenses and what the results were. I just have that one that's in front of me. I think it's best to go off of what's happening now and move forward with the action for what the complaint is before us, because I don't have the concrete data to justify what's happened in the past with the other complaints that mentioned.
Victoria, are you able to respond to Commissioner Cohen's second question about notifying RID?
Oh, I think Sherry, did you have something before I answer? No, oh,
Oh, I just want to make sure that if you need help answering the question, that I was here to
Please.
support you.
yes, I do.
Okay, Commissioner Cohen, RID, we don't have any responsibility to suspend an interpreter's license. That is all governed by RID. What we suspend the license only, not the certification, the one that's related to here in Arizona. Therefore, the interpreter couldn't work within the state of Arizona. The interpreter still could keep their RID certification. However, RID do recognize state licensure. So then at that point, it would be up to RID to investigate, to pursue further investigation in relation to what happened upon that interpreter certification, if that makes sense.
This is Commissioner Cohen. Are we able to ask ACDHH to notify RID or to look into this, or is that out of your authority as an agency?
Well, interesting that this has come up with regard to licensure being set up. We have not had to revoke anyone's license at this point. We have not had to even notify RID. Now, if we were, or should we need to take action in that course, in any situation, if we had to suspend someone's license, I for sure would ask for legal advice. We're not under obligation, but I don't think we are. I think it would be our decision, and we don't really have that authority to initiate that kind of action.
Thank you. That's it for me now. And this is Chair Jantz. Carmen, I saw your video pop on. Did you want to add something?
Just as a reminder, in the past, when we work with individuals that file complaints, we do advise those individuals, we make them aware that there are other processes to complain about interpreters, and we do let them know that they themselves could file a complaint with RID.
Great, thank you, Carmen. Appreciate that addition, and that is exactly what I was thinking. All right, Commissioner Cienko.
Well, to be very honest with you, Andrew stole my question, and it also gave rise to other questions with RID. So I guess having him say that, the point of filing with RID would have to come from the consumer who was violated against and who originally started the complaint. I cannot emphasize enough how disappointed I am with this situation. To actually hear the whole story of what occurred. This is a very severe offense to our consumer, considering it was family court and a custody hearing. That being said, going forward in the disciplinary process, Victoria, if you don't mind repeating to me, what were those 4 former complaints about? When were they and what were they about?
Unfortunately, I don't have the specifics of the 4. I just have the recent one before this complaint. And so the last one, let's see. they did go before the board, and it was, the board did decide to have Ms. Morris complete continuing education hours, and that was satisfied. Let's see. And the specifics of that particular complaint, let me see.
And that was in 2015.
Correct.
So
2015 was quite a
was
while
some time
ago.
ago.
Mhm.
So I think the disciplinary process may be better and go into closed session where we discuss a more formal form of disciplinary actions going forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Cienko. Was that a motion?
Yes, I motion that we move into executive session for further discussion on how to proceed in disciplinary. Oh, unless you had something you want to add, Commissioner Scarborough, I'm sorry.
This is Commissioner Scarborough. If we enter executive session, we're required to speak over things with the Assistant Attorney General, right?
Yes, that's correct.
This is Chair Jantz. Yes, if we go into executive session, we can only ask questions to the Assistant Attorney General. Keep in mind, though, we do have a couple other commissioners who have comments and questions. So to clarify, Commissioner Cienko, are you making a motion that we go into executive session?
I withdraw that motion that we table this discussion and have Victoria do a little bit more research on the prior complaint so we can get a better picture of how to move forward with any disciplinary actions and discussions.
And this is Commissioner Scarborough. I second that. This is Chair Jantz. Just to clarify, we have a motion to table this interpreter's complaint, the complaint against Jennifer Morse, until the next board meeting when Victoria can provide us with more information. Is that correct, Commissioner Cienko? And that motion was seconded by Commissioner Scarborough. Any discussion on that motion? Commissioner Benton, did you have a comment or any discussion?
No, I totally agree with the way we're moving forward.
This is Chair Jantz. Any other questions or discussion before we move to a vote? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor of tabling this interpreter complaint against Jennifer Morse until the next board meeting, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Mm.
This is Chair Jantz. I'm opposed. Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries. The interpreter complaint against Jennifer Morse will be tabled and will be on the next board meeting agenda. The next interpreter complaint is Diane Asia Chua. Victoria, can you please provide us a summary?
Sure. This particular inquiry began on August 8th, 2022. Mrs. Chua filled out an initial journal license application and answered the question, has your state of Arizona interpreter license or another jurisdiction certificate license lapsed in the past? It was answered yes. Mrs. Chua's answer further explained, I was licensed in June 14th, 2022. I did not remember to renew my license. I am a new mother and it just slipped my mind. Her general license expired June 14th, 2022. On the same application where she notified us that her license lapsed, she let us know that she worked for 30 days without a license. And Mrs. Chua also submitted a 20-day short-term registration so that she could work while her second initial general application was processed so that she would be compliant. So Mrs. Chua did work and receive compensation in the settings of virtual remote interpreting, VRS, and post-secondary settings, which all require licenses. And she worked in those settings for 30 days. As it stands now, Mrs. Chua does have her another Arizona general license, and it was issued on September 23rd, 2022. The recommendation of this particular complaint. The investigator's recommendation is a penalty of a fine of $10 to $50 per day as a settlement for 30 days worked without a license. This recommendation is in line with previous cases with similar circumstances that has appeared before the board. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Victoria. Any questions or discussion on this?
All right, seeing none, we're going to move forward. Victoria, I have a question for clarification. You said she only worked without a license for 30 days. She didn't exceed the 30-day time frame?
Correct. She caught her mistake at that 30-day mark. Mhm.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other thoughts or comments from the board? Seeing and hearing none. Oh, we have Commissioner Williams.
I don't know how relevant this is to the penalty, but I think in the materials, this is a second offense for the lapse. I think it's happened before.
Victoria?
I'm double checking. Going off memory, no, I believe this is her first time lapsing, but bear with me just a moment to confirm for Mrs. Chua.
Victoria, in the materials, it's under the summary of inquiry.
Mhm. No, I apologize. I could have stated that a bit clearer. So no, this was the only time that she has lapsed. She obtained a short-term registration to fill in the gap between her working without a license and her new license being issued to her. So that's not clear in that summary. So she did only lapse the one time.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams, for that additional comment and question. Further comments or questions from you? Okay, seeing none. I see Commissioner Benton, please.
I make a motion that we impugn a fine of $300 for $10 per day for 30 days.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor related to a fine being imposed for working without an interpreter license for 30 days at $10 a day for a total of $300. Any seconds from the board?
Commissioner Brimhall seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Brimhall. We have a motion. The motion was proposed and a second. Discussion. Now, related to this motion is for the first time a violation, that seems a little bit severe, wouldn't you say? On the fee schedule, it says unless the person could do like $100 for the first offense for letting their interpreter license lapse.
Allow me to explain my reasoning.
Sure, please.
During the time this person did not have a license, she continued to work and earn money. And there's a list of dates and when she did work and earn that money. $300 is nothing compared to the amount of money she earned during those 30 days of working without a license.
In general, Commissioner Benton, I would agree with you. And honestly, I really appreciate that honest feedback. If we impose a severe fine, that means going forward, interpreters maybe would not be as honest or this transparent with disclosing that. And that's my only concern.
We are obligated to the community to ensure that we have interpreters who maintain their license. And we are beholden to the state of Arizona as well and those consumers. I understand. I'm a mom with experience with kids, and I know you get mom brain and things get away from you. I do understand that. However, at the same time, this is her job, her livelihood, her responsibility. For the $300, I don't believe it's excessive.
Thank you very much for sharing your concerns. The valid points, Commissioner Benton. We have any further comments or questions regarding this complaint? Seeing and hearing none, I will put it to a formal vote. This will call for a roll call for a vote, please.
You're calling for roll?
Yes, Kyla, if we could have roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Benton?
Here.
Aye.
Commissioner Jantz?
Here.
Commissioner Scarborough?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Rourke?
Hi.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Cinco?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Venkatesh? And Commissioner Brimhall?
Aye.
Commissioner Webster?
Aye.
And Commissioner Cohen?
Aye.
I think that's everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kyla. So the motion carries. We'll fine the interpreter $300 for the complaint imposed on him. We're moving on to the next interpreter licensure complaint, please. Is Lynn Elrich. I believe we have a public comment related to this interpreter complaint. So Commissioner Benton, do you mind reading the interpreter complaint? And the public comments, excuse me.
Certainly. My name is Lynn Irick. I'm a sign language interpreter and I've worked in this field for 43 years. I've been a member of RID since 2008 when I received my NIC certification. This year, for the first time, I neglected to pay my RID dues on time. I had a lot going on this year and I forgot to pay my dues. I was embarrassed and ashamed. It started when my computer was hacked and destroyed in the process. I lost a lot of information and have been using a borrowed and unfamiliar computer. I had listed my Yahoo email with RID and I couldn't figure out how to access that email. I was out of town during much of June and July, caring for a family member who underwent surgery. And after returning home, I decided to see if I could access Yahoo. It was August 1st, and I saw an email from RID stating I had missed the grace period, which ended July 31st. I have since gone through the RID steps to correct this by paying the $100 fine along with my dues and taking 6 hours, 0.6 CEU credit hours, which I can't apply to my certification maintenance program. I also lost the CEUs I had accumulated thus far. You can be sure I won't make this mistake again. I hope you will approve my request for my license renewal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Benton, for reading that. Victoria, do you mind providing a brief summarization of the interpreter violation?
Sure. Ms. Irick failed to report to the commission that her RID certification was revoked as required by ARS R9 26518, Section A. And as we just heard the explanation, a similar explanation was provided during the investigation. I forgot and I had troubles with my email account. Since then has paid the dues, has been reinstated, is currently certified, is currently licensed. And the investigator does recommend either a letter of reprimand or a fine.
Thank you, Victoria. Is there any questions or comments or discussion from the board? Yeah. At this time, we can do a letter of reprimand or we can impose a fine based on the investigation, based on the recommendation from the investigator. This is an action item. Commissioner Benton?
I move that we send a letter of reprimand.
I second that. We have Commissioner Secco with a second. Okay, now for discussion. I understand that situations and circumstances related to, the situation that was explained, the interpreter did know about her RID certification being revoked. Why wouldn't that immediately trigger something where she should notify the commission? That's what I don't understand. The lack of notification to the commission that her license was suspended while she was waiting on working out everything before and waited for that to work out prior to notifying the commission. Clearly, she knew she needed to make the notification to the commission. Commissioner Benton, do you feel that the letter of reprimandation is enough?
We go back through the timeline. I'd like to see specifically when she did make that clear, and then see if Victoria can assist us further on reviewing that timeline.
Sure, give me 2 seconds. So October 12th, 2022 is when the commission reviewed the RID certification and revocation list, and we found Mrs. Irick's name on that list, and we looked in our records and we had not been notified. We notified her on that day, or inquired on that day, was that accurate, what was going on? On October 13th is when she notified the commission that, yes, it's true, my certification had been revoked. I have been working on getting it reinstated. And as of Tuesday, October 11th, I have complied with all the requirements and have paid my dues and fines related to reinstatement.
Commissioner Benton?
It sounds like she was unaware and she was out of town, focused on family, and didn't realize that her certification had lapsed and she passed the deadline to pay the dues. I guess I don't see any information showing that she knew and she withheld information. And that's how I'm reading it.
Thank you, Commissioner Benton. I appreciate your opinion. Any other members with thoughts or comments before we move on with a vote? Hearing none and seeing none. Motion seconded. It seems that the letter of reprimand is in order. Everyone in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries. So now, before we move on, I think this would be a good time for a break. Also to give the interpreters and the CART members, as well as commissioners and staff, a break of rest of their eyes and hands. Please come back in 10 minutes time, where we will then resume at 6:13 p.m. Ready to resume.
Oh, Good evening and welcome back. Is everyone ready to proceed? Want to make sure we still have a quorum before we move forward. Can all members please turn on their cameras to confirm that they're here? Thank you. And anyone on the phone?
Commissioner Brimhall.
Looks like, thank you, Commissioner Brimhall. We do have a quorum and we're ready to get back into it. The next interpreter complaint that we'll review is against Tamara Flanagan. Commissioner Benton, did we have a public comment for this interpreter complaint? I don't recall. Thank you. I see Tamara. Do you mind holding just one moment, please? Commissioner Benton, do you mind giving that public comment statement one more time, please? Commissioner Benton, are you having some technical difficulties? Okay, fantastic. I can see you now. Would you please read the public comment statement before we have Tamara begin her public comment? Commissioner Benton? Great.
I had gotten rid of it because we read it earlier, so I didn't know I had to read it again. So I had put it away. Okay. The board is responsible for establishing time limits for public participation. Unless modified by the board at a particular meeting, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes on all topics. Personal attacks on board members, staff, or other persons in attendance or absent are discouraged. Individuals are cautioned that statements concerning others that could be considered slanderous may subject the speaker to civil action. Those who violate this rule can be barred from future appearances before the board. This applies to both public hearings and board meetings. Your cooperation is appreciated.
Thank you, Commissioner Benton. We do have one individual who'll be giving a live comment. It is Tamara. You do have a limit of 3 minutes to your public comment. Please go ahead with your comment.
Okay, hi everybody. My name's Tamara Flanagan. I'm a seasoned ASL interpreter working over 30 years in this state. I have never had any issues in regards to my licensure being in question at all. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I did get my card in the mail, so I'm wondering if this is all going to be moot. There was a severe cascade of faux pas that happened after RID calculated all of their CEUs. I took some CEU classes from them this time, and they had a weird way of calculating it into your permanent record. Unfortunately, what they caught was that I didn't have enough hours, when in fact I had overdone my hours for the last cycle. So between their correspondence and correspondence with ACDHH, I was injured on the job. I've ruptured 2 discs. I've had 1 cervical surgery, C2 through 6. I had a plastic repair on that area that failed. So I just won my workers' comp case. I'm going up to Colorado to get the hardware out and to get me better. I am hanging on to things because I've been grandfathered and I've been doing this so long. And I get my work alerts, etc., on a work related email, and since I have not worked technically since 2018, I don't check that email very often. I also have complex post-traumatic stress disease, and I get triggered very, very easy by things that come flying at me out of nowhere that feel unjust. I have a hard time getting up to my mailbox but once or twice a week. It can take a while for me to get to my phone because I've been trained to have my phones turned off and non-vibrating. And I live with a chronic, on the chronic pain scale, I live with a 6 and up every day. And that is why I'm having this 3rd surgery and fought so hard for it. It's a repetitive movement issue caused by what I do for a living. I am hoping that I'll maybe, when I'm well enough, to be able to do some simple assignments at the community college. But, you know, I want to go out on my own terms. So as soon as I found out what was going on with ACDHH, I got a hold of the people there at ACDHH and explained
everything. Tamara, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that was time.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
It's okay. I truly ask.
Thank you. I really appreciate your public comment. And we'd ask that this time that you turn your video off, please. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Benton. Okay. Victoria, will you give us the summary for this complaint?
Sure. So this complaint is for interpreter Tamara Flanagan. Ms. Flanagan failed to report to the commission that her RID certification was revoked as required by ARS R9 26518, Section A. Ms. Flanagan was notified of her certification revocation in April of 2022. Ms. Flanagan stated due to illness, she did not know about the letter or revocation until ACDHH inquired in June of 2022. She wrote that she just became informed of the issue after severe medical issues. And once she received the letter from us, then she did take the steps to try to rectify it. And she says, I have paid my RID dues. I'm awaiting correction in the CEU reporting, and then I will make sure to keep ACDHH in the loop. So since that statement was written, RID did send a letter acknowledging that her certification has been reinstated, and that the issues revolving around her lack of CEUs and the discrepancy with the CEUs was resolved, and that she is now certified. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Victoria. I appreciate you providing us with that summary. Any questions, comments, or discussion from the board? I'll also entertain a motion. Yes, Victoria, did you have a follow-up?
I apologize, I forgot to verbalize what the investors' recommendations are for this particular complaint. So the recommendations are either a letter of reprimand or a fine.
Thank you, Victoria. Any comments from the board members? Seeing none, I do sympathize with the comments that we heard tonight. I do appreciate the effort to rectify the situation. And we've had previous cases that are similar, and I would like to make a motion that the board send a letter of reprimand.
Second,
and Commissioner Benton seconds that. And Commissioner Cienko also seconds that. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, we can proceed with a vote. All of those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries. The next interpreter complaint on the agenda is against Brandy Resnick. Victoria, can you please provide us with a brief summary?
Sure. This complaint is for interpreter Brandy Resnick. Ms. Resnick failed to report to the commission that her RID certification was revoked as required by ARS R9 26518, Section A. Ms. Resnick's certification was revoked in 2021, and she failed to notify the commission. Since then, her certification has been reinstated. The reason her certification was revoked is that she missed paying her RID fees in June of 2021. Ms. Resnick stated that she was not fully cognizant of the reporting rule to the commission. She also had the perception that her certification had just lapsed due to non-payment and not really revoked. She felt that since her revocation was due to non-payment of dues and not for any behavior-related accusations while interpreting, this did not justify the revocation status nor alerting ACDHH. Ms. Resnick also let us know that she did have some health issues that prevented her from paying the RID dues that resulted in her her revocation of certification. At this time, her certification has been reinstated by RID, and she is currently licensed in Arizona. The recommendation for this particular complaint is a letter of reprimand or a fine. Please let me know if you have questions.
Thank you, Victoria. I appreciate the summary. Any comments or questions from the board members? Commissioner Scarborough?
Do we know the time period for when her certification had lapsed and then reinstated?
Yes, give me 2 seconds here.
And as well, did she work during that time?
Ms. Resnick did work. She worked 13 days during the time period that her certification was revoked. And her certification was revoked for a total of 26 days. In August of 2021, to clarify, sorry.
This is Chair Jans. Do you have a follow-up question? The summary doesn't include any details as far as how many days worked without a license, but she did work 13 days without a license.
Yeah, it's in, it should be on page 7 in the package, that when she's replying to the questions posed by the investigator. Oh, page 12.
Yes, that's on page 12, Commissioner Benton. So it's a total of 26 days, which you can find, total of 21 days you can find on page 13. Page 21.
This is Commissioner Jans. Commissioner Benton, just to clarify, you were saying that it's a total of 21 pages and it's on page 12 where you find that she worked 13 days without a license. Victoria, for this specific interpreter complaint, because she reported that she worked without a license, does that differ from the actual complaint? Or is this all part of the same complaint?
So it's part of it. So she worked without certification for 13 days. So her license, that didn't miss a beat. She's renewed on time with Arizona, and that's been fine. It's her certification where the lapse, if you will, or the where it was not current.
Okay, and to clarify on the timeline then, her RID certification lapsed and she continued to work for 13 days. However, her Arizona license had never lapsed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Commissioner Scarborough?
But according to the Arizona licensure laws, it is illegal correct? To have a general license without a certification.
Technically, yes. So when you are given the license, you're given that license based on your certification. If something happens to your certification, the licensee is supposed to let the commission know, and then we take action from there. So technically her license was still valid because your license is valid for 1 year. When we issue you that license, it's valid for 1 year. And we issue the license based on your certification type. Now, in that timeline, if something happens, that's when you let us know. That's why we have that in the rule. If something happens with your certification that lapses, you bring it to us, and then we make a decision on what to do with that license, if anything. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Victoria. Pretty interesting situation. Commissioner Scarborough.
I would like to consult with the Attorney General.
To clarify, Commissioner Scarborough, is that a motion?
If no other comments or questions are forthcoming, then yes.
Okay, we have a motion to go into executive session. Do we have a second?
And I second that, Commissioner Stanko says.
We have a second from Commissioner Cienko to go into executive session. And we will have to get the executive session all set up for us to go in. Excuse me, just one more thing. Before we go into executive session, we need to ensure that we have the votes to enter executive session. All in favor of going into executive session, please say aye or raise your hand. And this is Executive Director Collins. Just a point of clarification. Sorry, Mr. Chair, just for the record, could you please specify the reason for entering executive session? And also talk about the purpose, who and what we'll be discussing. This is Chair Jantz. We have a motion to go into executive session to talk about the complaint against Brendy Resnick. We have a second from Commissioner Cienko. And this is Director Collins to clarify for legal advice. This is Chair Jantz, yes, for legal consultation on this specific interpreter complaint. And I'm still waiting for the vote. Thank you for that point of clarification, Director Collins. All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries and we will enter executive session. Please go ahead and get that set up for us so we can enter executive session. Thank you. All right, gonna check with IT. Want to make sure that we're live streaming again.
Yes, we are. This is Ricky. We should start about 20 seconds here.
All right, let us know when you're ready.
Sure will.
Okay, are we streaming? Okay. All right. We are live again. Thank you so much for your patience. We exited executive session at 7:15. And I want to double check and make sure that everyone is still aware that we are discussing the interpreter complaint against Brandy Resnick. Any board discussion? Seeing none. This is a tough situation for us as we're looking at an interpreter complaint. This is the first time that we've been in this situation with this type of interpreter complaint, and it's pretty interesting. And we were discussing what to do. And we feel that it's appropriate to make sure that we are reminding the interpreting community of their responsibility and their burden to inform ACDHH of their certification status. And it's so important that the interpreters monitor that and notify the commission if there's a change. Or if you fail to notify the commission while your certification has been revoked. It's in violation of ARS R926518, Section A. Based on that observation, it may be worthwhile for the board to consider a motion. I move that we impose a letter of reprimand for a failure to report to the commission when this individual's RID certification had been revoked, and also a $300 fine for the violation of statute R926518, Section A. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second from Commissioner Scarborough. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I would like to call a roll call for this vote, please. Kyla?
Of course. Commissioner Webster?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Rourke?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen? Commissioner Venkatesh?
Aye.
Commissioner Brimhall?
Aye.
Commissioner Cinco?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarborough?
Aye.
Commissioner Benton?
Here.
And Commissioner Jantz.
Aye. And for clarification, we have one more individual, Commissioner Cohen. Was that an aye
Commissioner
from
Cohen,
you?
I'm sorry, I thought I requested for you, but
I'm watching you. Watching you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kyla. Motion carries. Based on that conversation, I would like to make a recommendation to staff at ACDHH that they have a discussion with Victoria and the Interpreter Licensure Committee to look at possibly revisiting and addressing some of those statutory issues if we ever find ourselves in a similar situation in the future. Thank you. And Victoria, if you don't mind, we'll be going over the next interpreter complaint. Could you please provide a summary for the complaint against Sean Vriesen?
Sure. So this complaint is for interpreter Sean Vriesen. So the summary is the inquiry began on May 26, 2022. Mr. Vriesen filled out an initial general license application and answered the question, has your state of Arizona interpreter license or another jurisdiction certificate or license lapsed in the past year? He answered that question, yes. He explained that his Arizona license, since he has so many licenses in the various states that require licensure, he got confused with his Arizona license for his Arkansas license. After further inquiry, Mr. Bryson says he worked 36 days, without an Arizona license, but once he figured out that he made the mistake before he hit the 30 days past due, I declined all of my Arizona calls and routed any Arizona calls to other CDIs who all have valid Arizona licenses. Mr. Bryson works in a video remote interpreting setting for one company. The investigator reached out to the company to inquire about the specific number of days Mr. Bryson worked with Arizona residents during the time his Arizona license lapsed, which was between April 19th, 2022 to May 26, 2022.
The company that Mr. Verizon works for advised, quote, "Our process is that only interpreters with the state license requirements are offered calls. If licenses are expired, they are removed from the queue until they are renewed." The company further explained, "Our compliance, HR, and workforce management teams monitor and receive auto notifications regarding interpreter licensure status and make adjustments as needed." So based on the procedures outlined by Mr. Verizon's employer, it appears he did not have any Arizona consumer calls offered to him during the time his Arizona license was lapsed. It is the investigator's opinion that Mr. Verizon did not violate licensure laws. Therefore, this investigation should be closed. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you for the summary, Victoria. Any questions or discussion amongst the board? I see Commissioner Scarborough. No? Okay.
No, just smiling.
Okay. Well, then based on the investigator's recommendation, I do think it's appropriate to make a motion that we dismiss this complaint. Any seconds? Looks like we have a second from Commissioner Cienko. All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Any opposed or any abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries. That complaint is dismissed. Now we can move on to some more positive news. I would like to move on to agenda item number 10, which is the deaf-blind draft resolution. Before I do that, we can release the Assistant Attorney General. This is Chair Jantz. Yes, of course. Thank you for the reminder, Director Collins. Mr. Bacon, we appreciate your assistance this evening. Thank you. And we will not need you for the rest of the evening. I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I will let, Nikki did present on this, and just to remind everyone, we only have the interpreters until 8:30, the interpreters and our cart captioner. It's now 7:25. You want to keep that in mind. Nikki, please. Hi there. As I mentioned in my report earlier, we do have a draft based on the desires of having deaf-blind representation serve on this board. And in previous discussions, we had agreed, and we decided that the best solution would be for the board to have a resolution to formally recognize that we will have deaf-blind individuals serving on the board. And you may be wondering in which capacity they'll be serving. They could serve there are a few different required positions, and two of those positions are a deaf representative and a hard of hearing representative. So with this resolution that we have drafted, a deaf-blind individual can serve as a deaf representative, or an individual who has a combined vision and hearing loss, may serve as a hard of hearing representative. The language as it's written is written from the board chair with your approval to recognize this and to make this official. I hope that covers it. This is Chair Jantz. Thank you, Nikki. If you don't mind staying on for just one moment to see if we have any commission members with questions or discussion. This is Nikki, sure. Seeing none, I do want to mention that I appreciate this resolution. I think this is a great way to memorialize this position and have a deafblind community member serve on the commission. I know that Commissioner Cohen will also appreciate this, and there have been some barriers as far as the legal requirement, and this will be a great compromise, a great way to meet in the middle, to have a person be in either of those positions to serve the commission. And it's not just limited to the state. Of course, going through the process of redrafting everything would be extremely complex and lengthy. And this is Nikki, board chair, if I may add. It could be either and. So this is Chair Jantz, exactly. Thank you, Nikki. With that said, I'm not seeing any other comments from the board members, but I would like to make a motion that we approve this draft resolution as written.
I second. Andrew, will you?
Looks like we have Commissioner Cienko with a second. Actually, we got multiple seconds.
I second.
Including Commissioner Cohen. Commissioner Benton, this is obviously a popular resolution. So all in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing you, Commissioner Cohen, I'm going to make sure that that's on the record that you oppose this resolution. No, I'm just giving you a hard time. Thank you so much, everyone. Motion carries. And Nikki, thank you so much for your hard work. I appreciate you looking into this and getting this work done for the resolution. I'm excited to set a new standard for other state commissions. Yes, thank you. Now we would move on to the SSP services update.
Good evening, everyone. During our last board meeting, there were some questions related to SSP services. So I'm just going to give you a quick summary of what our program guidelines are, and I'll see if you have any questions. Currently, the SSP program provides up to 20 hours worth of SSP services for every individual that is approved through our intake process. We are at a position at this time that if an individual needs additional hours, they can make that request for those additional hours to be provided. The basic requirements for this program is any person with combined vision hearing loss or deafblind individual who understands the use of SSPs, how to direct their SSPs, and how to request the services certainly are qualified for this program. And we also look at their records that they provide to us as well to look at the level of vision loss. To date, I am not aware of any individuals that we have turned down that have not been eligible for SSP services. During the last board meeting, there was some concern mentioned about not having protactile services for SSPs that were familiar with the protactile methodologies. That is something that our service provider, Catholic Community Services, is aware of. There have been protactile workshops provided in the past, and we have had Arizona interpreters participate. As a matter of fact, the U of A provided protactile training about just before the pandemic hit. I maybe want to say maybe late 2018. So again, we are aware that some individuals have those needs, but at this particular time, there are only a few, and by few, I think maybe 2 individuals that may have protactile skills as SSP providers. So again, with our contractor, we do the best that we can to fit the needs of those individuals. At the last meeting, we did ask the person that appeared and made comments to reach out to us. And since that time, we have worked with that individual and made sure that the SSP needs that they had have been met, but not all of those needs were met through protactile methodologies, but that person has been receiving services through continue to receive services through our program. Other elements of that particular program is just a wide variety of options that people have available. Of course, medical, legal, appointments oftentimes are what we see most frequently requested for SSP services. Are there any other particular questions? Again, this service is for individuals who are 18 and older. And I will take any questions if you have any.
This is Commissioner Cohen. Please, PV, go right ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner Cohen.
I have 2 questions. The first being, how are we coming about those numbers, those statistics? Are they increasing? Are they flatlining, decreasing? What do this number show? And the second question is, based on previous experience from deafblind individuals, and some have gotten out of the program and transferred to a working setting, do we have open and available positions available that we can catch up on that now? What's the status on those with left being SSPs?
As it relates to, if I understood your questions correctly, I think the first one was it the number of hours? How we came to those number of hours that each person receives every month? Did I understand your question correctly?
This is Commissioner Cohen. I was asking how many hours are provided to a client from this client or that client. How do we come about that statistic? How are we breaking it down to provide the hours to the questions? Is the program growing, or have we seen it flatline, or do we see a decrease in services? Just to clarify even further, but yes, it's an open-ended question.
The first question, we got the number of 20 hours per person by doing basically and across the board, really across the nation, other states that have SSP programs. And we came up with that number of 20 hours per month. So far, over the past 3 years, that seems to have met all of the needs of most individuals. We've had maybe 4 or 5 requests for additional hours each year, and we've been able to grant those additional hours to individuals. So for folks who find themselves needing more than 20 hours a month, we have been able to provide that. Most of the needs, as I said, have been met within those 20 hours, and we are very flexible, and we can increase those hours for most individuals. During this past fiscal year, there were about 2,145 hours of SSP services provided. So that would have been from July 1st of 2021 until June 30th of 2022. So there has definitely been an increase in the use of service each year. The first year was we had less than maybe even 300 hours the first year. So this is our third full year of services. So you can see that that has grown exponentially. And, we hope that that will continue to grow to meet the needs of deafblind, combined vision and hearing loss Arizonans. Does that answer your questions, Commissioner Cohen?
Spot on. You get an A for that. As a deafblind person, where are we getting the deafblind consumers from?
Most of
This is Chair Jantz. Just for point of clarification, he was asking about the deafblind specialist position.
Thank you for that clarification. At this time, the deafblind specialist position is still under review. Again, as I have met with Sherry, with our executive director, we have talked about the primary goals of establishing that deafblind position. Originally, one of the first major tasks of that position was to establish an SSP program. And we have done that, and we have vetted that, providing those services in-house. And we've also gone through the process of using a contractor. And we have been under a contract for 2 years. So we are still reviewing other aspects of that position to see what the future holds for that role.
Commissioner Cohen?
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we'll keep you posted. Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you so much, Carmen. Appreciate your summary. I would like to move on to agenda item number 12. That is the discussion of meeting dates and locations for 2023. I know we do have some board members who would prefer to continue to meet virtually. Some board members would prefer to meet in person. I did have a discussion with commission staff to see if it would be possible to take the hybrid approach in future board meetings. Currently, we don't have the technology to make a hybrid meeting happen, where we would have some individuals call in and we would have some people be there in person. We just don't have the technology for it. I did talk things over with Executive Director Sherry Collins to see if we could continue the conversation for the future to figure out and identify some potential necessary technology to make that work. There may be funding that's required in order to get that technology solution. As of now, we do need to decide whether or not the board will be meeting in person or remotely. If the board decides to meet remotely, then we don't have to figure out the locations. However, if we do decide to gather in person and meet in person, we will need to determine the locations for the meetings. Any thoughts or comments from the board members? Commissioner O'Rourke, did you have a comment?
Actually, yes, I was just going to say from a personal point of view, in my case, and just being a board member these past, I guess it's been 3 years already, but we've all shared and experienced some health issues. In my case in particular, I see me continuing being in a caregiver role. And so I guess I would kind of selfishly hope that we would continue with a virtual meeting. And I really feel I have learned a lot, and I know there's not been that personal meeting, but for me, it would be virtually would be a more positive, a doable experience.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Rourke. I appreciate your comments. I see Commissioner Cohen. Go ahead.
I think the first time I've came and arrived at a board meeting and using the Zoom, I haven't had an opportunity to be in person. Zoom has seemed to work very well for me. I'm quite comfortable with this setting. So why rock the boat?
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. Any other comments or feedback from board members? As for me, I would prefer to meet in person, and that just goes back down to deaf culture values. We really value that in-person interaction. You really get that personal connection. I feel like you have more vibrant discussion in person. What I am seeing in general is that the preference would be to continue to meet remotely. One option is for us to decide at the meeting whether or not the following meeting would be in person. We can work on this and decide that all of next year would be remote. We could pick specific dates, and we could go ahead and also meet in person. One thing to remember, though, is that we promised that we would go to Yuma in order for community members who live in the area to participate in live board meetings. Unfortunately, right before that, COVID hit as we were planning to meet in Yuma. I'm hoping that we can consider having a future board meeting in Yuma in order to honor that commitment that we made. I do want you to keep that in mind. With that said, we do have 4 recommended dates. They are February 16th, 2023, May 18th, 2023, August 17th, 2023, and November 16th, 2023. Any objections to the proposed dates? I'm not seeing any objections or any comments. I would like to make a motion that we meet on those 4 dates, February 16th, May 18th, August 17th, and November 16th. Is there a second?
I second.
I second.
We have Commissioner O'Rourke and Commissioner Cienko seconding that. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? Seeing none, The motion passes, and we will meet on those 4 dates in 2023. Now, the next topic of discussion is where we'll meet. Would the commissioners prefer to meet in person or remotely on February 16th?
I vote remote. This is Commissioner Venkatesh.
I would prefer remote. Commissioner O'Rourke.
And as Commissioner Cohen, I would vote for remote.
We're not at a vote quite yet. We still need a motion. Commissioner Stanko?
Yes, I move that we vote for a roll call.
Thank you for that clarification. We don't have a motion to vote on quite yet. We need a motion first to decide where we will be meeting on February 16th, 2023.
Thank you, Chair Jantz. It's been a long night.
I understand.
Praise my motion. I make a motion to vote on the location for the next board meeting by roll call.
This is Chair Jantz. Just for clarification, that wouldn't be a motion for voting. That would be a procedural thing. I can keep the request that you made in mind. We do need a motion, though, to decide where we will be meeting, and that would be either in person, and if that is, we need a location, or meeting remotely on February 16th, 2023. And I see Commissioner Benton, your hand up.
Yes, I move to host the February board meeting on Zoom.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second from Commissioner O'Rourke. Any additional conversation, discussion, any concerns? Seeing none, we do have a request to do a roll call vote. Kyla?
Commissioner Jantz,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Rourke,
Aye.
Commissioner Cinco, Commissioner Benton, Commissioner Venkatesh,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarborough, Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Brimhall,
Aye.
and then last but not least, Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you, Kyla. The motion carries. Okay, we have our set schedule for our 2023 meeting dates. February 16th will be a remote meeting. Moving on to agenda item number 13, that is officer elections. We have 2 options here. Keep in mind, we do currently have 4 vacant positions on the board.
Bad.
So we can proceed with officer elections, knowing that there are 4 positions that have yet to be filled. Or we can table this agenda item of the officer elections until next year when those 4 vacant positions have been filled. Any discussion or thoughts on how we should proceed? And if you would prefer that we move forward with officer elections, we can accept nominations or we can accept a motion to continue with the current officers. I see Commissioner Williams. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion. We continue with the current officers if they're willing to do it.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. We have a motion. Commissioner O'Rourke, did you want to add something? And you're muted.
I just was going to second it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner O'Rourke. We have a motion to maintain and keep our current officers if they do accept. And we just had a second from Commissioner O'Rourke. Do you want to make a point of clarification? And I'll make sure that we name the current officers to verify that they accept the nomination to continue in their position. As secretary, we have Commissioner Benton. Do you accept the motion to continue in your current role?
I do.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. Commissioner Cienko is our current vice chair. Commissioner Cienko, are you willing to stay on as vice chair?
I am.
Thank you for your service. That comes to me as chair, Chair Jantz. I am willing to continue as the chair, so I accept. We do need to vote on the motion to keep the current officers that we have for 2023. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed, or does anyone abstain? All right, that motion passes. Now, I can't speak to Commissioner Cienko or Commissioner Benton, but I do want to say thank you for giving me the honor to stay on as your chair. I look forward to working with all of you in the new year. I hope that we continue in this trend of having little or no impact from COVID. That way we can have community involvement in our meetings. Commissioner Cienko and Commissioner Benton, do you have any comments?
I'm just happy to continue, Commissioner Benton says. Thank you. And I appreciate your leadership. Again, thank you. Commissioner Cienko, you've done a great job. My hat's off to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cienko. I couldn't do it without the two of you supporting me, and as well as members of the commission. Commissioner Cohen?
Would that affect our quorum if we lost anyone? Oh, we have lost some people, so we're no longer at quorum.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. We just got a couple of things left, so hopefully we can get through these and adjourn. Moving on to the accessible facilities for seniors, who will be giving us that report?
Hello
ahead,
again. Hello again. Just wanted to follow up from our last meeting. There were some concerns raised about accessible facilities. The commission's general approach to this issue is that once we are made aware of a facility that is not accessible, we will reach out to that facility depending upon whether it's deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind individual. That will determine which specialist will reach out to that facility. And in some instances, we've had members of the executive team particularly our executive director reach out to facilities as well. Sherry reported a bit earlier this evening that we are making some strides with the Department of Health Services as it relates to accessibility and access to effective communication with the Department of Health Services, who licenses many of these facilities. We will continue that particular approach. We strongly urge any members of the community or any of our board members that if you are having issues with equal access, if you have a friend, family, loved one in a facility, to please reach out to us, out to our specialists or directly to myself to let us know and provide the information. We will reach out and we will do advocacy on behalf of those individuals needing that equal access. Again, we've had some situations in the past where we've been made aware of situations. We've advocated. We've also, if our advocacy was not effective, we have referred individuals to the Arizona Center for Disability Law. We have seen some positive outcomes through some of those referrals. So, again, we urge you to reach out to us if you are experiencing those barriers. And as we continue to work with the Department of Health Services, we hope to see some great strides made during this coming year. So that's pretty much my report. Sherry, I don't know if there's anything that you would like to add or if any of the commissioners have questions or recommendation.
You got it all. And this is Commissioner Jantz. Thank you so much. Any questions from the board for Carmen? Seeing none, thank you so much for the summary. I appreciate it. Moving on to future agenda items for our February meeting. One thing that I would like to see on our agenda is a staff report follow-up in regards to our earlier discussion about RID certification, what to do in the situation where certification lapses, but someone still has a license. We want to know how the board can proceed if we find ourselves in that situation again. Any other agenda items the board members would like to see? I'm not seeing anything from anyone else. I would like, because we will have a new governor coming in January, I also know that the legislative session will be starting in January and a lot of things will be happening. I would love to have Nikki give us a report on what's happening down at the legislature and what it looks like in Arizona having a Democratic governor and what that's going to mean for future board operations. This is Sherry, that's in the works. We definitely will. And I see Commissioner Williams.
Regarding the February meeting agenda, excuse me, when and if the staff learns of the technology for hybrid meetings, it would be good to hear about it. But I don't mean this in a way where they have to report at every meeting. But when they learn something and they have something to report, that would be interesting.
Mrs. Chair Jantz, I think that would be a great topic to add to the agenda, Commissioner Williams. We will get that added to the agenda and see where staff are with their investigation in order to provide us with a brief update on the ability to do the hybrid approach meetings. Any other thoughts or comments for the next board meeting agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Williams,
I make a motion to adjourn.
and who would like to second that motion?
Commissioner Brimhall, I will second that motion.
All in favor? Please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Anyone oppose or abstain? I am not seeing any, except for Commissioner Cohen. It's questionable, but the motion still carries. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your hard work this evening. I appreciate IT for your hard work. Thank you to the interpreters for their hard work and our captioner as well for your hard work. And thank you to the board members for your time. Tonight's agenda was quite lengthy. Thank you so much for taking the time to get through it. I wish you all happy holidays.
Thank you.
Please stay safe. I hope you are able to spend time with your loved ones these holidays, and we will see you next year.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mrs. Sherry, have a good night. Thank you.